Hello, everyone. My name is Fabio, and this is the third and final assessment of the MBA subject Capstone, and is also one of my last assessments for the whole course. So, wish me luck. And this presentation contains an introduction to the company that will be analyzed, the strategic problem that is going to be worked with, the type of analysis done to understand the case and the company, the key findings of the research, and recommendations for the business. So the select organization is Commonwealth Bank Australia, and the Commonwealth Bank was founded in 1911 under the Commonwealth Bank Acts, and it was fully privatized by the government in 1996. Today, CBA has more than 800,000 shareholders and 52,000 employees. It is the largest bank in the Southern Hemisphere, and together with National Australian Bank, ANZ, and Westpac, composes the big four Australian banks. The company is pictured in a negative way in the media because of a huge money laundering scandal that's been going on for a few years now. And in August last year, 2017, Austrac, the Australian Transaction Reports and Analysis Centre, launched civil proceedings in the federal court alleging that CBA had breached money laundering and terrorism financing laws on 53,700 occasions. And everything started in 2015 when New South Wales police arrested Arizan Sheikh and Salman Khan and charged them with money laundering. And while looking at their home, the police found more than 3 million in banking receipts, most from Commonwealth Bank's deposit machines. And after that, authorities discovered that over the previous 7.5 months, the two men laundered more than $1 million, making more than 250 separate deposits into several Commonwealth Bank accounts. Now, they had been part of Cuckoo Smurfing Syndicate, a money laundering technique that involves using multiple people to make deposits in different branches across a network to attempt to avoid detection. It also involves piggybacking on legitimate international funds transfers being made by unwitting customers. The two men used dozens of CBA branches across Sydney to make the deposits. Many of the amounts were under $10,000, which is the limit that requires the banks to report them to Austrac. And all these actions, it's a process known as structured deposits. Now, the breaches are related to the bank's use of intelligent deposit machines, the IDMs, which you can see on the streets. And between November 2012 and September 2015, the bank claimed that a programming error allowed depositors to instantly credit cash card deposits to their accounts, resulting in the failure to report values over 10,000 to Austrac and not enforce any limits to the number of transactions. Now, these suspicion transactions in question had a total value of 624.7 million, and during 3 years, around almost 8.9 billion in cash was deposited via IDMs before a proper risk assessment was carried out. Here you can see a little infograph showing how these money laundering operations were carried out and where CBA failed to notify them. You can see they used several accounts to spread the money domestically and overseas. Now, this case exposed two important things. The first one, the more life is made easier for customers, the higher is the risk of fraud and consequently more headaches to the company's directors. And the second one is that Commonwealth Bank is behind world best practices when it comes to identifying money laundering. The responsible should have known what was going on and be able to properly report these things to the authorities. However, they didn't. And that brings us to our strategic problem, that is how to manage shareholders after a money laundering scandal. And we identify the shareholders as one of the company's main stakeholders. And risk management strategies were not properly executed to comply with regulations. Therefore, our strategic problem is how to handle shareholders in order to align their interests with the board of directors. Now, regarding the type of analysis, according to the assessment outline, most of the data come from secondary sources, including ABC News, Nine News, Sydney Morning Herald, and the Australian Financial Review, among others. And the theories, models, and frameworks were found through previous MBA subjects, books, and journals regarding the discipline. And let's talk about the findings now. Commonwealth Bank is a lot of trouble because they could face maximum penalty of $18 million for each one of the 53,700 contraventions, which totalize around $960 billion. It suffered a huge reputational damage. They had a drop in their shares of $3.25 when that scandal came up, and that wiped out around 0.56 billion of the bank's market value. In 2016, 51% of shareholders voted against the bank's executive remuneration proposals. And since then, CBA is defending itself in federal court against Austria and is under investigation by ASIC, the Australian Securities and Investments Commission. And talking about the people that were inside the company during that time, Chairman Catherine Livingstone and 6 other board members managed to keep their jobs and avoid a board spill, which is good because they have already some kind of relationship with the shareholders, which is going to help in our strategies to manage them. But however, the CEO, Ian Arad, will be replaced in this year, 2018, by Matt Comyn. And Matt Comyn will be the youngest chief at any of the big 4, so he might be able for new ideas and new strategy developments that can help in this situation as well, which is another good thing. He's more open-minded. And finally, shareholders, which are our focus. The shareholders who bought CBA actions between July 2015 and August 2017 launched a class action over the bank, and is considered one of the largest shareholder cases in Australian legal history. And as mentioned by the business reporter Andrew Robertson, ripping off customers is one thing, but destroying shareholders' money is a totally different story. Unlike customers, shareholders have a powerful voice. They are the owners. If the value of the Commonwealth Bank is seriously damaged by the money laundering fiasco, you can bet they won't take that lying down. And that's exactly what's going on right now, as you can see. So these findings bring us to the last part of this presentation, where some recommendations are provided to properly manage shareholders, and they are based on the stakeholder theory study in the MBA subject Dynamic Strategy and Disruptive Innovation. And shareholders are very important. They are the owners of companies and the suppliers of any additional risk capital that may be required. They are a very powerful stakeholder group in terms of potential for changes in actions, excuse me, affecting the success of specific strategic programs. So for that, we're going to adopt a non-reactive approach. That is, have a response and not a reaction. We have to find a way to maximize their cooperative potential and minimize their competitive threat, which is the harm they can cause to us. And all of this is just to create more value for the shareholders and see how things are being handled and are being properly handled. Here we have a little chart to illustrate the stakeholder theory. And according to Freeman, the stakeholder theory suggests that the reason for a business is to generate as much value as possible for a stakeholder, as I just mentioned. And that means to consider the interests of everyone that affects or can be affected by the business. However, one of the stakeholder groups that we can identify is the shareholders group, which is the one that we want to. And according to the stakeholder theory, shareholders can be considered defensive stakeholders. Defensive stakeholders can be of relatively little further help, but can take steps to prevent an organization from achieving its objectives. This means they present low cooperative potential. They're not happy with the situation, the present situation, and they have a high competitive threat, which means they have power to harm us even more than we are already being harmed now. And a strategic program that seeks to defend the organization from potential competitive threat is appropriate for these defensive stakeholders. And this program will reinforce current beliefs strategy, which means this strategy is to reinsure the message that management is constantly striving to generate more value for shareholders. It means to show them they're being taken care of and they're in good hands. And another approach would be the transactional process strategies that covers relationship programs. This also allows shareholders to start and maneuver communication and enables to understand what shareholders think about existing programs, making sure that any useful stakeholder behavior is preserved while the competitive threat is overcome. And as an example, Telstra and Westpac developed an app which allows shareholders to vote on company matters digitally and get more involved in many processes that need their focus of attention. So that might be a good solution for when shareholders need to get involved in big issues, and it's easier, this kind of communication, to reach them as well. And still regarding the communications, CBA should elaborate a proper risk management framework, which is also known as the Prudential Standards CPS 220, that is inspected by the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority, APRA. And according to them, institutions must have a risk management appropriate to its size, business mix, and complexity. They also need to maintain a board-approved risk management strategy with the key elements of the framework and business plan with the implementation of its strategic objectives. They all must be aligned. And after all, notify APRA when it becomes aware of a significant breach or material deviation, which happened in this money laundering scandal, but no one reported. So, in conclusion, to successfully implement these strategies, retraining of the Commonwealth Bank financial expert is necessary, along with training staff with technical modifications, in order to have proper employees that can respond to almost any kind of situation or any emerging threat. And during all this, reinforce the shareholders that this is the purpose of, for reinsure the shareholders, that is reinsure the shareholders that they're doing this to ensure profitability in current beliefs without asking the shareholders for more capital. As Rappaport says, value creation growth is the strategic challenge, and to succeed, companies must be good at developing new, potentially disruptive business. So, summarizing, shareholders are really important and must be a priority to be managed after a big scandal like that. Reinforce their beliefs in the company and make them feel safe are of utmost importance, and the creation of value while aligning their objective with the board of directors and company goals need to be carefully considered. Now, this concludes our presentation. Thank you, everyone, and hope you have a great week.